Welcome to the Progress Texas Happy Hour.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Progress Texas Happy Hour. Communications Director Chris Mosier here. Runoff season is on. Early voting has begun. And as we're recording, it's the second day of early voting, actually, in the 2026 primary runoff. As I've said, I don't recall quite the level of attention that we're seeing this time, really in any runoff election that I can remember in recent years, which speaks to the level of confidence and determination that we're enjoying in progressive politics across the state of Texas this cycle. Definite excitement in the air in South Texas in particular. In fact, our board has issued a little bit of a late breaking endorsement, later than normal for sure, in the runoff for Congressional District 35. This is one of the districts redrawn for Republican comfort in our recent Donald Trump ordered and Greg Abbott delivered redistricting scam, and one that may or may not work out that way given Donald Trump's historically garbage numbers. And of course, we'll get to that. For now, we're proud to welcome to the podcast for the very first time CD35 Democratic candidate and official Progress Texas endorsee, Johnny Garcia. Johnny, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. And it's great to have the endorsement as well. It's never too late to continue picking up the momentum that we're picking up. So thank you all so much for getting that rolled out, and we're looking forward to getting the job done.
It's well-deserved, and we're glad to meet you. So, Johnny, you're a new face to a lot of our statewide audience. So would you start with the basics on your background and your professional experience, and finally, why you decided to run for Congress?
Absolutely. Look, I think you mentioned it, right? Trump's garbage numbers, as we are seeing them to plummet by the day, while Democrats are continuing to soar by the day. You know, I am born and raised here in San Antonio, Texas. Grew up on the west side of San Antonio, graduated from Memorial High School, one of the most underfunded and marginalized school districts in America. Coming out of high school, while working my way through community college, I worked construction and plumbing, digging trenches by hand, installing PVC pipe in newly built homes back in 2006 when the housing boom was really working well here in this district. But also from there, I moved on and needed to keep the lights on, and I joined the sheriff's office here in Bexar County. And I started my time working in the jail, managing job rehabilitation programs for the incarcerated, making sure that before people re-entered society, they were entering society the right way, being held accountable, but also giving them the job skills that they needed. So we are breaking this endless cycle and allowing people to contribute back to society the right way. And from there, I made it to patrol. I served on the SWAT team as a hostage negotiator. Wow. And it was during that time, I really understood and got to learn how important the words you use can save lives. As we've seen in this race, words are just thrown out without any regard. Yep. And that's what we've seen with the president, right? I'm sure you've covered many of them, of the choice words that Donald Trump uses are reckless and hurtful. But also I moved on within the agency, and I served as a spokesperson for the agency for the last 8 years, where I've learned how important it is that you hold yourself accountable and you are transparent with communicating the good as well as when you get things wrong with the community. And as you know, again, this administration has no accountability and zero transparency. And I think it's why folks here in this district are just fed up with everything that this administration is doing, everything that is hurting working class families here in this district. I never thought I would be running for Congress at this point in my lifetime, but I just could not sit back and watch this administration tarnish my badge and my uniform and continue to sow fear and divide in our communities, as what we're seeing happen and play out in real time. And I tell folks in this district that this administration wasn't banking on pissing off a Democrat deputy sheriff to step into this race and say, I'm not going to let this happen on my watch. We have to draw the line in the sand to say no mas, right?
Yep.
The saying is don't mess with Texas, but there's also the equivalent of no te metan con Texas. And here in this district that they redrew in, the majority of a Latino district. We're seeing folks come back to our party that we lost in 2024. And it's why I'm so excited that we have a strong chance to win this race, and we will bring balance to the chaos that this administration has brought upon everybody in the nation.
That's all great stuff. And I was going to ask you about this a little later, but I'll go ahead and ask you now since you brought it up. The idea that we've had our congressional map carved up with a presumption, a highly presumptuous presumption, I would say, that Latino voters, especially in South Texas, who took a gamble on Donald Trump based on all the things that he promised, from groceries to security to no new military adventures to all the different things that they were banking on him to follow through on, which he hasn't. This is a big part of why his numbers are tanking. What are you hearing in particular from folks that you meet in your district, from this community who might be in those shoes, who are having that buyer's remorse that we've all, that progressives have hoped was going to come around, and it appears that it has?
Yeah, look, we know the term voters remorse, but people are simply having voters regret.
Sure.
Having regretted voting Donald Trump into office. Somebody that campaigned on ending forever wars, reducing inflation. We're seeing the opposite play out in real time. And you, as a fellow Texan, me growing up here in San Antonio, people just want to be able to go to H-E-B and buy their groceries.
Yeah.
They want to be able to stop at Buc-ee's and fill up their gas tanks. And families here in South Central Texas, they just want to be able to make it to Sunday to buy their barbacoa and Big Red. But families aren't able to do that nowadays, especially in a district that has 3 rural counties. What may be 5 to 10 minutes down the street to a convenience store for you is 30 to 45 minutes one way for families in this district. And you add on the increased gas prices that we're all facing, making a trip down to the grocery store now seems like a luxury, let alone making it to church on Sundays. And it's why families are getting frustrated, and they're tired, and they want change. And we're seeing that materialize by the day. I was just in Guadalupe County yesterday, block walking, and folks are really happy to see that there's a strong Democrat running in this race that ultimately stands the greatest chance to make this gerrymander backfire on those that brought it upon us.
Very, very good. So, Johnny, your race in particular has made the statewide radar due to some highly questionable stuff being said and posted by your runoff opponent, Maureen Galindo, who's running as a Democrat as well. We normally try to keep things friendly between Dems, but it's become apparent that Maureen, just based on the things that she is saying and posting, is not a person that we necessarily want to see on the November ballot. I'm learning from you and your team, actually, as we started our recording, that there is Republican meddling going on here as well. Would you spell out first, for folks who don't know that much about what's transpired in this race, the character flaws, frankly, that we've seen from Maureen, and then the Republican involvement? I mean, tell us what you guys are seeing.
Yeah, it seems that the growing fear of the Republicans in this district continues to elevate by the day. What they see me as a threat, making it out of the runoff, they view her as an investment. As Republicans continue to increase their spending against me in a Democratic primary runoff to the tune of $979,000. That's how much they view her as an investment and me as a threat. And, I was just talking to Pete Buttigieg the other day. Thankfully, we received his endorsement. And he says, if there's any knock on you, Johnny, that of how much you are a threat is when you get Republicans spending against you in a Democratic runoff.
Yeah.
And look, we know that I've ran this campaign clean. My focus has been kitchen table issues, affordability, making sure that we're able to make life just a little bit more affordable and easier for families at the end of the day. That's been my focus from the get-go, making sure that we're unifying and strengthening our party, not dividing it. But we're seeing that my opponent continues to use rhetoric that is going to divide and hurt our party, use rhetoric that is going to make our Jewish community feel like they don't have a party to believe in.
Right. And
here in a state, what it's like when Democrats lose, and we have an opportunity that is within our sights to win and make serious ground here in this district, we cannot afford, and we don't have the luxury to lose people to our party. I say in law enforcement, we don't have the luxury to lose. When we lose, people die.
Right.
And in this midterm election cycle, families that are counting on Democrats to win and ultimately restore and win back the majority in the House of Representatives, we can make life affordable. We can make healthcare more affordable for families. And it's why it's so important that we have to cast out opponents that use hateful, divisive, vile rhetoric. I've stayed clean, but enough is enough. We know that with her comments targeting Latinos in a Latino majority district is going to hurt our party. We know that in a working class district where the majority of our good paying jobs are manufacturing and labor jobs, when she calls our labor unions bootlickers, it hurts our party and it does nothing good for us. Quite frankly, she's undemocratic. She's unfit to hold office. And it just goes to show that we cannot allow this to stand for our party. We cannot allow this person to represent our party, especially at a time when this race is so critical.
Right. To really, really, succinctly summarize what Johnny just said, Maureen Galindo is being backed by Republican money that can be traced back to the Win Red fundraising platform to the tune of close to $1 million now. One must ask oneself why Republican elements would be sinking $1 million into a Democratic runoff. And I don't even know that it's necessarily about that they believe the things that she is spouting, which mostly is largely very conspiracist sort of crackpot sort of stuff that really just has no place in any kind of a intelligent conversation of any kind. The fact is they peg her as someone that they can beat in this district, and that's why they want her to win, and that's why they're putting money behind her. So this is something very serious for anyone who's considering voting for Maureen Galindo to understand as an established fact, and we're going to continue over the course of this really crucial runoff early voting week to follow this story. But that is what we're looking at here. That is one of the reasons for this semi-late endorsement of Johnny Garcia. There is a bit of an emergency situation on the Democratic side.
Absolutely.
In this particular race. So back to you, Johnny, and in your travels around the district, you've talked about economic issues, which are, very clearly central to the conversation this time around, for very, very good reason. I sat down and had a steak with my mother-in-law a couple of days ago, just last weekend, and realized it was the first steak I've had in months.
Oh, gosh.
Because we haven't been buying beef, and I guess I just kind of noticed, just being selective at the grocery store about what you buy. I'm sitting down to a steak going, wow, what's this? I forgot about how great this is. And so it's a difficult situation all across the board. But tell us about other things that the folks that you're meeting as you travel around CD35, people that you're meeting out there for the first time, outside of economic stuff. What are they talking about?
They want a party that they can believe in again. And we're not just seeing the shift from Democrats, but we're seeing it from independents and Republicans. The other day, I was in Highland Hills speaking at a forum, and we're just talking about pragmatic solutions. I step off the stage, and I'm immediately rushed by a woman that comes up to me, and she says, everything that you said was just so refreshing. And not knowing what party she voted with, I was like, well, thank you very much. Would love to have your trust and support in this runoff. We need everybody to come out and vote. And she says, I'm sorry, I can't vote for you. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'd love your trust and support in the general. And she just goes on to say that everything that her party that she has voted for years is not doing anything for her and her family. When education is under attack in our community, as you know, with the voucher systems, that is a prevailing issue in certain areas throughout the district. As you know, healthcare has become increasingly unaffordable. An area here in San Antonio, Oakwell Farms, I was pulled to the side by a gentleman that says, let me tell you how important affordable healthcare is for me. He said, back in December, I was paying $75 for my COPD medication that I'm using to fight cancer. When the subsidies lapsed, that medication went from $75 to $200 immediately. And he said, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to stop because I had to sacrifice what am I going to pay for to what I'm already paying. And these are the stories that we're hearing. A story like my sister, who went from paying, over $100 to $200 per paycheck for her medication and her health care to help her and my nephew. She's a single mother. These are the stories that are hurting working class families across this district, and it's why it's so important. We have to win this race so we can restore affordability across the board, as you mentioned, for so many families throughout Texas.
Absolutely. So about the district in particular, so this is CD 35, which the former version of this, which is still being represented by Congressman Greg Casar, who has also endorsed your campaign, which is really cool to see. Used to stretch up into East Austin. Now is a little more rural. It's a good bit of Bexar County, but also looks like all of Guadalupe, Wilson, and Karnes counties. Johnny, are there any parts of this kind of newly redrawn district, and some sections sort of out in the country, out east of San Antonio, that you might not have traveled to before, that you have now traveled to, that you would want to highlight as some interesting and fun communities that you might have run into out there?
Yeah, it's a beautiful district, especially for a cowboy hat wearing Texan, right? Cowboy
Yeah,
boot wearing Texan.
love it.
It allows me to strut my cowboy hat out in the district a whole lot. But
That's great.
as you mentioned, I have received the endorsement of Congressman Greg Casar. We were both out in Karnes County yesterday. I have received the endorsement of the first representative of 35, Congressman Lloyd Doggett,
Hmm.
and it's symbolic, in my opinion, that I'm able to receive the endorsement of these two strong Democratic champions, and it feels like the torch is being passed. Karnes County was a county that was quite unfamiliar with me. I've passed through it maybe, but we don't have family down there. But it's actually been one of the counties that I have visited the most. I've been going to Karnes County to go to church. I'm Catholic
Yep.
by faith, and engaging with some of the parishioners in these districts and at these churches has been a way that I've been able to communicate with folks. Back in December, I'll tell you an interesting story. I was down there for the Christmas lights parade with some of the Wilson County Democrats, and I'm driving down the parade route to find where we're at, and I know very well that Karnes County is a deep red Republican county. Well, I'm driving down trying to find our route, and I see the truck, and it just had a big old Democrat flag on it. And I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get tomatoes thrown at us. We're gonna have to duck and dodge our way through this parade.
Yeah.
But I meet up with our folks. I'm looking at some of the parade goers, and I see a constable, and I'm like, he's law enforcement,
Yeah.
probably Republican, but let me go up and talk to him. And I go up and I shake his hand. I said, hey, my name's Johnny Garcia. I'm running to be your congressman in this district. And, he kind of brushed me off, seeing that I came from the truck that said Democrat,
Yeah.
right? You already know how that story ended. So I go off. He comes right back, and he just wanted to have a full-on debate on all sorts of issues. What's your stance on abortion? No man should ever have a decision over a woman's body. That's between a woman and her doctor.
Sure.
Is your DA prosecuting all sorts of cops in Bexar County? It's because they're abusing their authority and not following the law, right? I was hitting him on all these issues, not knowing that he's debating a Democrat deputy sheriff who's a SWAT hostage negotiator.
Yep.
And I was like, well, let me start using some of my skills. So what normal people call the awkward silence in negotiations, it's an effective pause. And you allow all of these thoughts that are going through somebody's head during a negotiation to really start causing confusion and really start doubting themselves. And I said, hey, when we're in law enforcement and we respond to calls for service, we don't ask dispatch whether that home we're headed to is Democratic or Republican. He cut me off and he said, you're right. We just respond. And I said, well, damn, look at you sounding like a Democrat. And he's like, I ain't no damn Democrat, man. I'm a Republican. I'm a MAGA Republican. I let that set in for a few seconds. And he says, look, man, about 20 years ago, I used to be a Democrat. Shocked as hell. I said, well, what the hell happened? And he said, look, man, I felt that the party just abandoned us. And the majority of Democrats down here in this district felt the same way. And when I use this story and I speak to this mentality of putting people before politics, regardless of party affiliation, that is what is mind blowing people down here, is that there's a Democrat that's putting people before politics, that is putting their issues before any political agenda. And I think that is what is contributing to this trend that we're seeing. People that are just exhausted with everyday issues. And I think why we're seeing so many gains across the nation, why we're seeing so many gains here in this district. And I feel very strong that and confident we're going to get the job done. And it's why we have to make it out of this runoff. Look, you mentioned it. We've seen Republican spending for our opponent initially start as 40,000, balloon to over nearly $1 million. It's literally an all-out arms race. I'm not only facing an opponent, I'm facing the Republican Party that sees her as an investment.
Yep.
We're building the broadest, the biggest coalition in this race now more than ever. Folks from our progressive lanes, such as Congressman Greg Casar, to our moderate Dems, and now more than ever, we have to unite our party. We have to get out of this election because, quite frankly, if we don't, it's not only game over for Democrats here in this district, it's game over for America. And it's why we need everybody to come out and support. We need everybody to vote in this runoff election because there's more at stake than just one candidate.
It is huge. It starts with one candidate, but you're right. The implications are quite staggering in an election that so many people don't even know is happening at this point. So that's something I would admonish the listener not only to show up and vote, but also to make sure everybody knows that there's a very, very important election happening, especially you folks down around San Antonio and east of San Antonio. All the friends and family need to be alerted to the fact that they need to go in and help take care of this. CD35 candidate and Progress Texas-Endorsed Johnny Garcia, has been terrific to meet you.
Likewise.
And absolutely good luck in your run, and be safe on the trail. And we hope we'll follow along as we continue.
Thank you so much. Love the endorsement, and we look forward to stepping off this May 26th as the Democratic nominee, so we can not only win this race, but ultimately win back our nation.
Let's do it. Don't forget, early voting continues all the way through this Friday, and then Election Day is the following Tuesday in the 2026 primary runoff. That's it for the Progress Texas Happy Hour for the moment. We thank you for listening very, very much. We do have a couple of live events coming up that we want to make sure you are aware of, dear listener. For those of you in the Houston area, we're actually going to be in your neighborhood tomorrow night. Do come join us in Northwest Harris County in Cypress. We're going to be doing a first 6 months check-in and live podcast recording with the Cy-Fair ISD school board members who made national news last year when they beat back the Christian Nationalists for a huge and badly needed change there. Go to the Progress Texas events page at progresstexas.org to find out more about this. This is tomorrow night, Wednesday night, May 20th, Creekwood Grill in Cypress. The event is free thanks to our good friends Sean Finney, the Honorable Leslie Briones, and Otis Avigaro, but we do want you to RSVP for the event before you show up. Do that at progresstexas.org. And we are also making preparations for next month's 16th anniversary celebration in Dallas. Drinks, light bites, and a fun review of the highlights of our successes over the last few years. Save that date. It's Tuesday, June 16th in Big D. Also, progresstexas.org to get signed up for your spot for the 16th anniversary party. Good friends Howard Klingon, Charles Zeller, Alex Andrade, the Honorable Dick Levine, Nancy Sanders, Sarah Peretta, and Jason Smith, the Honorable Allison Grinter Allen, Doug Jones, the Honorable Bill Peterson, Mark Yagin, John Adair, Julie Evans, Jenny Laughlin, Texas Blue Media, the Honorable Jeremy Suka, and Mike Ware, all great friends of Progress Texas and all among the supporters of our 16th anniversary party coming up in Dallas, middle of next month. We would love to see you, dear listener, at a live event soon. Our live gigs are a major way we keep doing what we do, so your support and your attendance really, really help us continue doing what we do. All about that, everything we do at progresstexas.org.